Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar here with Jitesh Ramakrishnan, and we have got the NFL Week 16 recap. It's been a busy holiday, a lot of football, all throughout the weekend, really. So, certainly a great time to watch football. Also, we'll talk about some NBA, maybe some NHL, the college football playoffs coming out, bowl season. So, definitely a lot of exciting stuff in the sports world, as always. And yeah, the NFL season's starting to come together. The playoff picture is starting to come together. We're starting to see who's really who's a pretender, who's a contender, who's eliminated. But yeah, excuse me. Why don't we just start from the first game and get it rolling? So we can start with Saints versus Rams on
Yeah,
Thursday night.
apparently the Saints continue to still be haunted by the Rams like 4 years later after the whole NFC
Oh,
Championship
the,
debacle.
the
But
pass
like,
interference thing.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, my takeaway from this game is that like, you know, the Saints just struggle to do almost anything right. I mean, you saw like they poached the ending of the first half, and that led the Rams to score a touchdown in about 35 seconds. So a seven, so that was essentially a 14-point swing there by the end of halftime. They're down 17-7, and of course, like the score it ended 30-22, makes the game a little bit more respectable than what it was. But make no
Right.
mistake, the Saints were clearly outmatched by the Rams in
Hmm.
this game. They were clearly outmatched, and it's not really that much of a contest. But the Rams were they're catching heat at the right time, and
Hmm.
like it's always I've learned this from experience, unfortunately. It's always the teams that are that have caught heat or on fire just when the playoffs are ready to start that are the most dangerous, rather than the ones that have been dominant the entire season. So like uh, the Rams
Yeah.
being, and I believe the Rams are holding the sixth seed as of right now. Like they could definitely make
Yeah,
some
that's
noise.
accurate.
It would be quite interesting.
It would, yeah. Yeah, I'm checking out the playoff picture right now. So, yeah, Rams are in the six, Seahawks in seven, the Bucs have the four seed, and then Niners still have the one seed, Lions two, Eagles three, and Cowboys five in the NFC side. So that'll be interesting. The Rams could probably beat Philadelphia in the wild card, the way things are looking right
Don't
now.
don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, we'll see.
But then again,
One game at a time.
I just said that statement 15 seconds ago, so anything's possible.
True. And with that, we can shift over to Bengals Steelers on Saturday. Okay, so
Uh,
it looks like the Steelers are gonna try to keep their 500 streak
well,
going.
I
Mason
was just
Rudolph
gonna
had
say,
a Christmas Eve performance for the lifetime, I guess. So
yeah,
that was pretty exciting to see.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Steeler. He managed to do his job.
Yeah,
And it seems like this week was the death. It seems like this week might have been the demise of the Cinderella story backup QBs. Jake Browning with the Bengals, Nick Mullins with the
right.
Viking. Well, then again, Nick Mullins wasn't exactly that great last week, but he still had a pretty decent performance. And of course, well, Brock Purdy was once a backup, so I guess that doesn't really count. But who else am I thinking of? Oh yeah, and good old Danny DeVito. So yeah, so like it seems like this past week was the death of the backup QB, like pulling miracles. But I mean, let's be real, the Bengals weren't really gonna be that much of a contender anyways.
All right.
Uh, but
All
of
right.
course, like I think the Bengals have bigger matters to deal with. It's not the fact that they're gonna miss the playoffs. It's the fact that T. Higgins is gonna be demanding a lot of money. Um,
Yeah.
and as for the Steelers, well, this is the first time in a few weeks, well, first time in 3 weeks that they've gotten a win, and also the first time in about a month that their offense has looked somewhat competent. I mean, of course, of course, George Pickens was feasting. 195 yards, two touchdowns, remarkable performance by George Pickens, and solid quarterbacking by Mason Rudolph. Steelers defense was disruptive and effective. So, pretty good game for the Steelers. Of course, they are still they are still very much pretenders as they are Pittsburgh. So that doesn't
Right.
really say a whole lot. But once again, all that matters is once they get into the playoffs, everyone is 0-0, and it's
Hmm.
just do or die from there. Game 7 every week.
Yeah. That's the exciting part about the NFL playoffs. It's win or go home.
No,
So
no, that's why
one
I
game
prefer
series.
no, that's why I prefer the NFL playoffs to like actually no, no. I prefer the Stanley Cup playoffs to the NFL series to
Right.
NFL playoffs, but after
Hmm.
that, like uh after like Stanley Cup, NFL takes precedence. But we can
Yeah.
get into that later. You
Okay.
want to go into Bills Chargers?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's
Yeah.
keep the train moving.
Yeah.
Um,
So the
yeah.
Bills they started off sloppy. They started
Right.
off down 10 zip. And it looked like after their high of a couple weeks ago when they avenged their well, I can't really say avenged because this was in the regular season. When they walked into the KC and Kadarius Toney helped them get the win. Um, Buffalo like they started off sloppy, but um they came back to win. And as for the Chargers, they look much more poised and competent and electric as a team without that hacks. The Chargers, like, it's a lost season, of course. Like, you're still looking pretty good after basically having your talent wasted for the past few years by Brandon Staley. So overall, like, I'd say like this game, like the thing is, we're already on week 16, and we still don't really know what the hell are the Buffalo Bills. They are very Jekyll and Hyde as a team. They can go from firing 40 points like that to just being a dud. And I don't know, like I'm trying to be objective here as a Patriots fan on the Bills. I still can't really make out what are they supposed to do after 16 weeks of watching them play. Like
Yeah, it's a
it's
very strange team. Like it's like got hot and then they went cold and then it's like they're all over the place. They play down to your competition, they play up to a certain competition. I like the Cowboys win, but I mean this wasn't really inspired. I mean they did play well considering after the Broncos game they beat the Jets, they almost beat the Eagles, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the they beat the Bills, they beat the Cowboys handily, and then they
no
beat
no
the Chargers barely. So I
the
mean
Bills continue to beat themselves sometimes. I mean,
yeah.
we beat the Bills. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Giants almost beat them too. The Jets beat them, Patriots beat them. So yeah, they're a very like inconsistent team, but they do seem to kind of be on the right track. But then this game against the Chargers, that's not inspiring because the Chargers are, the Chargers without Justin Herbert on top of that. So seems like firing Staley certainly helped out there. They at least played like a competent team for once, which is good.
And I mean, it's not just competent. It seems like the team like they had more of a heart. They had more of like a heartbeat like during this
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, they didn't do anything like stupid. So
And I mean,
yeah.
well, I should probably take back the death at the backup QB statement because Easton Stick put up a pretty good performance as a Chargers backup. And of course, he in no way has a threat to Justin Herbert's throne, but
Right.
you know, it helps to know that you have a good backup. Like
Hmm.
you could almost argue that's the second most crucial thing in football, having a good backup. Of course, the most crucial thing is probably having a good quarterback. But you know, if your main man goes down, it's nice to know that you have a second who can do maybe not like the same level of job that the first guy did, but at least an admirable, solid performance.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, speaking of, backups, like we saw Commanders Jets on Sunday, and that was a game where, Jacoby Brissett really shined and did
Yeah,
way
I
better than
mean,
Sam Howell.
don't let the score fool you. The Jets won this game by the second quarter. I mean, of course, they almost blew this game because
Mm,
Washington pretty much scored 28 points unanswered.
yeah.
But like, it's don't mistake this. That the Jets had this one. I mean, I
They
watched
were
like
straight out of the gate with like
yeah,
17-0. I was like, it's
I,
over. Then
I
the
pretty
Commanders
much
had the
watched the
lead
game
all
till
that time.
halftime. The Jets were pretty much strangling the Commanders alive. Like they
Hmm.
couldn't get anything going. Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, they could barely get open, and if they could, they're pretty tightly well contested and couldn't really get any catches. So the Jets defense held their strong arm within the first half. Of course, like I think that lead may have gotten to the team and they were a bit sloppy in the second half and they nearly blew the game. But the game was pretty
Right.
much won by the first half. And as for Washington, I mean, for the past few weeks, they thought Sam Howell was like their solid piece. Now Washington may have a decision to make during the draft. I mean, of course, I'm kind of hoping they don't take a quarterback so that another team below them kind of does. But which is something I don't understand. I mean, just a brief tangent. How are we below Washington on the mock draft when Washington beat us earlier in the season? I don't get that. But uh, I can look into that later. But
You guys don't have the same record, or
we do have the same record, and Washington's above us. Right now, they currently have the third overall pick, and we have
oh,
the fourth.
right, and they did beat you
Whatever.
guys.
I'll look into
Yeah.
it later.
Anyway. Okay. Yeah, well, that kind of sums up that game. Jets got a win. So they lost out on draft position. It's so funny seeing like opposing team, like fans root for the other team. Like in my group chat for WRC, like there's fans of like all over. We have all four NFC's teams. We have a lot of Giants, Jets, and we have like I think I think at least three AFC teams. So like we had a mix of Jets and Commanders fans watching that game. It was so funny seeing the Commanders fans like rooting for the Jets to win so they could slide down the tank. It's just like the same thing that Giants fans are doing, same thing that Patriots fans are doing. Like, it's just a struggle. But yeah, but I mean that's football sometimes. But I mean at the end of
An
the day, it
epic
does
fight
feel
to the
nice to win
bottom.
a game. So,
Yeah.
wait, what?
No, I was saying an epic fight to the bottom.
Pretty much. And then yeah, and then
But now
on a different note,
let's talk about a champion, a new division champion. For the first time in 30 years, the Detroit Lions are hosting a
a
playoff game
playoff game.
at Ford Field. Now,
Remarkable.
first things first. I am not a Lions fan, but I am so proud of them. I am so
Me
proud of them.
too.
Last year I wanted them in the playoffs,
Me
and
too.
I still think that bull crap with Seattle. I mean, don't get me wrong, Seattle, they made for a very nice story. Geno Smith comeback
Mm,
player of the year,
mm,
and they contested well against San Francisco in the playoff match for the first three
right.
quarters, and then San
Yeah.
Francisco overwhelmed them. But
Yeah.
I wanted Detroit in the playoffs so badly last year. But
Hmm.
hey, I got my wish now. So
Yeah.
maybe
I
Santa
love
is
it.
real. He
Mine did
allowed
really
me
good. Yeah.
to get the Lions into the playoffs. I am so proud of them. Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year, Jared Goff for the past two seasons. Lions have had an electric offense. Their defense is still a bit sloppy and needs some work, but I think this Detroit team, they can at least go to the NFC divisional round. At least. I'd like to see what they can
Yeah.
do.
Me too. I think they're primed for a run. I mean, they're a very good football team. Like so I mean, maybe they've been outmatched by a couple tough teams, and I think the Ravens and someone else. But I mean, other than that, they've played very good football, and yeah, I mean, they just look really good. I mean,
Nick Mullins got picked off a few times,
yeah, four
Nick
picks. That
but
helped.
Nick Mullins still torched the Lions secondary for 400 yards. So
Yeah, that's kind of a
it's kind of a mixed
weak
bag
spot.
because your defense did show up, but at the same time they kind of didn't. So like um it's a it's a little bit weird to judge the Lions defense, but the Lions offense, they've they're
They're rolling.
I wouldn't say they're firing all cylinders just yet, but they are certainly capable of doing so. And once again, I am so proud of them, even though I am not a Lions fan. It's I don't
They're
know.
just everyone's favorite team, I guess. Like no one has any real beef with them, like, unless you're like an NFC North fan, I guess. But
Yeah,
you
but
know.
come on, even
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, they're just like a team that everyone loves, right? Like it's just, like what they're like the underdog story. They've been bad for a long time. They have this, Dan Campbell's been a great leader for them. They really turn things
And
around.
fun
They're,
fact though, fun
so
fact, I don't
yeah.
know if you know this, but Dan Campbell was part of the 0-16 Lions squad back in 2008.
I saw
And he,
that. I
yeah,
saw that during the
he's
game.
worked
Yeah,
his way up, uh,
remarkable.
and now he's a coach of the same Lions that went from 0-16 to now division champs. And it's a damn good story.
It really is.
If he doesn't win coach, I don't want to hear any other arguments for coach of the year. He better win it. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't think there is anyone else.
no,
And
actually, I mean there are a few good cases. I mean, Harbaugh certainly has a good case with the
that's
Ravens
true.
this year. You
Baltimore
could
is like insane these
you
days.
could argue Stefanski with the Cleveland
True.
Browns revolving
Yeah.
door QB. You
Right.
could
Yeah,
and
you're right. Yeah.
yeah,
That's all I can really think of. But I mean, the Niners are pretty good,
you
I
could
guess.
maybe
So,
argue McVay maybe with the Rams, maybe.
depending on how things
And
go.
even
Yeah.
D'Amico Ryans if the Texans are able to sneak into the
hmm
playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
But
All good cases. But I don't, yeah, I mean,
no,
just
no.
Campbell is,
No.
you
You
know,
know,
that takes the cake.
I refuse to be objective. Dan Campbell, coach of the year all the way.
Mm. All right, well, let's move on to
Well, speaking of the coach of the year candidates, let's go to Browns Texans.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. The
First thing
Browns
I
are
need to s-
firmly
no,
in the
first thing I
playoff.
need to say,
Yeah.
Amari Cooper, I hate you because you cost me a chance to be in the finals for my fantasy league. But
Huh.
I mean, uh, but Amari Cooper, second wide receiver in NFL history to put up 200 yards with three different teams. He did it with the Raiders, the Cowboys, and now the Browns. The first wide receiver to do it, Terrell Owens, with the 49ers, with the Cowboys, and the Bengals.
Mhm.
I was a bit shocked at the Bengals because I thought it was going to be the Eagles because, him and Donovan McNabb, especially back in 2004, they were an electric tandem. But hey, Amari Cooper, god damn. 11 receptions, 265 yards, two touchdowns, and cost me a chance to go to the finals and defend my title in my fantasy league. But uh, what a performance he had. The Browns, like even though like they lost Dorian Thompson to a season-ending injury, doesn't matter right now. Apparently, Joe Flacco's turned back the clock 10 years, and he is slinging the ball quite well. And who would have thought? First of all, who would have thought Joe Flacco would play for the Browns? Well,
Right.
the OG Browns, I should say. Who would have thought that? And second, who would have thought he would have been in the league at 38? And three, who would have thought he'd somehow be good at 38?
Mhm.
It's very interesting. Of
Yeah.
course, the Texans secondary quite ravaged with injuries, so
Right.
not exactly a shocker that Amari Cooper was like was gonna cook, but
hmm
I don't know. And
I didn't expect that.
Of course CJ Stroud being out for the second week in a row.
Yeah.
Uh, wait, yeah, is that right? Second week in a row? Because last week he wasn't
I
there
think so.
and he got concussed during the Jets game. So yeah, so things are starting to fall apart for the Texans and their playoff hopes, and we can make the same case of argument with the Jaguars, but
Mm.
we can get to that in a little bit. Um, but yeah, like I said before in the preview, the team that goes into the playoffs that is hot is the most dangerous team, not the one that's been dominant the entire season. And Cleveland is doing just that.
Mm. Surprisingly still in contention for the one seed too, but that's probably gonna go to the Ravens or the probably the Ravens honestly, but the Dolphins still
It's
in the
got to go
mix
to
for
the
that as
Ravens.
well. But yeah, but I mean the Browns certainly gonna be a tough out in the wild card. So I mean they've with four different quarterbacks, I mean they found their magic with Joe Flacco of all people. So that's certainly remarkable what they've been able to do and in crowded AFC North. But I guess on back over to the NFC North, we have the Packers defeating the Panthers, the nail biter, 33-30, to get
Uh,
back in
uh,
the win column.
I'd
Interesting
argue
game
this is
there.
not a win for the Packers. I seriously would because you nearly blew this game to the Carolina Panthers. And that's not disrespect to the Panthers because
Right.
like, if the Packers are, I mean, of course they're still technically live in the playoffs, but from the way their defense played, it looked like they died 5 years ago. Like their defense was just horrific. They couldn't stop a tumbleweed in Carolina, and they nearly allowed Carolina to tie up the game if it weren't for Carolina's poor late game execution, because this is very similar to, the Dallas 49ers game back in 22, where they couldn't get the snap off just in time
Um,
to
really.
clock it and then set themselves up.
Wow.
So the Panthers could have very nearly tied it if they had an extra 2 seconds. And but good news for Carolina is that over the last couple of weeks, Bryce Young has started to he started to look solid. And, that's especially a good sign when, you know, this is your first overall pick and
Yeah.
you don't have a first round pick going into next year. It's at least a good sign seeing that Bryce Young is
Hmm.
morphing into being a solid QB. And
Right.
this should present good signs for Carolina going forward. With the quarterback positions, of course, like, still need to maybe invest in a cornerback, like alongside JC Horn. But overall, between this game, I thought the Panthers, even though they lost, were the better team.
Yeah. I think that could definitely be, case could be made for that for sure. I mean, they did look to be better. Packers, kind of struggled in that one. And then I guess another game where that kind of happened. Well, the Seahawks won again, by the same score. Once again, 20-17, this time over the Titans, who kind of going in the wrong direction. But Geno Smith's back in the lineup after Drew Lock had his big game on Monday night, and he was, I guess you could say he was cooking, but I mean, just kind of a ugly win there, but got the job done, and Seahawks still currently at the seventh seed in the NFC, so
And who would
yeah,
have thought that like a couple of weeks ago? Like we saw the road schedule. I mean, not even just the road schedule. We saw the schedule that they'd have to face their next five opponents. Like uh we thought the Seahawks were pretty much dead. But
right.
you know, they are surprisingly clinging on. And once again, this is a testament to old man Pete Carroll. Like
Mm,
he is able to spin a remarkable job at coaching. Like I don't know how he does it. I really don't. I mean, he's able to reinvigorate this belief amongst the team. I mean, you remember last year after the Russell Wilson blockbuster trade, everyone thought the Seahawks were going to be like a bottom five team.
yeah.
Well, Pete Carroll was probably laughing on the way to the bank because the Broncos were the top five worst team. Seattle was in the playoffs, and they had the fifth overall pick.
uh,
I don't know how Pete Carroll does it. He is something.
yeah. Yeah, and a favorable schedule coming up. I mean, well, kind of. I mean, they got the Steelers, should be winnable game, especially at home. Then you got the Cardinals, so that should be another win. So the Seahawks, definitely can take care of business.
Seahawks definitely can win out on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
of
can go
course,
10,
you're
ten
you're gr-
seven, which is prime for a wild card spot.
you're probably like the toughest matchup there is the Steelers, but the Cardinals have been playing they've been playing decently over the past few weeks. So,
Hmm.
and of course, don't
Yeah.
discount that it's an NFC West rivalry,
Right, right.
and you always got to account for rivalry games always
Yeah.
because they bring an
Yeah.
extra level
Anything
of
can
intensity.
happen. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess some more. So we got some NFC versus AFC South action. Couple games this week. We had the Colts Falcons, and then we had Jaguars Bucs. So I guess we could get into Colts Falcons first. Yeah. So the Falcons won 29-10.
It's amazing what happens when Desmond Ritter is not your quarterback.
Mm,
I mean, of course,
bring
Taylor
in
Heineke has shown before that he can do certain things that are quite majestical. We've
mm,
seen that before.
with
But
Washington. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know, like and the holy rarity happened where Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown with the Falcons.
Right.
So that was quite unexpected, but it happened.
Hmm.
And as for the Colts, well, it looks like their playoff dreams might be dying, might be dying. I mean, they're not dead just yet, but they're dying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Falcons trying to keep pace in the NFC South. Buccaneers with a convincing win over the Jaguars. I mean, they're starting to run away a little bit with the. I mean, they're only a game ahead, but it just seems like Jaguars are just heading the wrong direction as they try
Yep.
to cling on
They're
to a
spir
spot. The Bucs are going in the right direction.
yeah, the Bucs I mean, no, the Jaguars are spiraling at the worst possible time. The Bucs, I mean, Do you think this would be a weird argument? Baker Mayfield comeback player of the year?
Mm, I don't think so. I mean, we kind of talked about it last time. Like yeah, probably. I mean, if they, like I said, if they don't give it to Damar Hamlin, like I think he'd be, pretty good option, for that kind of an award. I mean, for on the field, I mean, he's certainly like, he's bounced back. So yeah, I would definitely say that'd be pretty good, a pretty good idea.
Yeah, the Bucs defense was absolutely ferocious. Then Trevor Lawrence had to be taken out of the game with a shoulder injury, and it's not like CJ Beathard was able to do any better against the Bucs defense, but it was certainly it's a good time to be a Tampa Bay fan, and it's a bad time to be a Jacksonville fan. So
Right.
I would be a little bit concerned.
Yeah. And then shifting over to the third matchup in Florida, we got or the third team in Florida, who's the best team in Florida and one of the best teams in the league. We got the Dolphins taking on the Cowboys, kind of the battle of good teams who struggle against better teams. Dolphins took it. It was a good game. I was watching this one. Definitely like a thriller.
A struggle
Yeah,
fest, and once again, the reps don't really seem to understand how to officiate a football game competently. We've seen it on both sides. We've seen it on both sides, but I don't know. Like Dallas certainly had, if they didn't waste their opening drive, they probably had a very good chance of winning this game. But and give
hmm
Dak credit, he was able to drive the Cowboys to a potential go-ahead win. I don't fault this
right.
game on Dak. I fault this on the Cowboys secondary folding at the worst possible time. But and um, of course, the Dolphins, speaking of injuries, um, Raheem Mostert has Raheem Mostert has injury. Of course, Jalen Waddle apparently has
Mm.
like a high ankle sprain, so that might be bad for this is very bad timing for the Dolphins, and especially in the next 2 weeks. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, of course, it's a bit hard to win back that number one status versus Baltimore, but
they have a chance head
this
to head, so it'll be an interesting
yeah.
one.
And of
See
course,
for sure.
Tyreek he wasn't exactly on the field for every single snap, but he still put in a fairly good performance. Of course, the Dolphins, the key right now, honestly, if I were the Dolphins, like you shouldn't really focus on trying to win out, rather I mean, as stupid as that sounds, but like what I'm trying to say is like you need to like focus on like getting your wide receivers like fully healthy going into the playoffs, and of course, um, I mean, ideally, I still think the Dolphins can probably hold on to the 2 seed going into that matchup. So it's very possible we could probably have a Dolphins Bills wild card matchup, just like last year. But this time the grounds will be set at Miami rather than Buffalo. So it should play
Mm.
more to Miami's advantage,
Right.
especially if they get their speedsters back fully healthy.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I guess moving on over to Commanders. Cardinals Bears. Bears what got a win over, the Cardinals, one of the worst teams in the league. But I mean, yeah, pretty big game there for Khalil Herbert, Cole Kmet, both over 100 yards. Kyler Murray looks pretty good. I mean, the Cardinals have certainly been doing better the last couple of weeks, but I guess a good win for the Bears, who still get to hold on to
I
their number one draft status, which
And
is
I think Justin
mm,
Fields is certainly going to make the front office have a very hard decision because past couple of weeks he's been very solid at quarterback. So will the Bears still try and pick Caleb Williams at number one thanks to
I
Carolina's
don't think
generosity?
so.
We'll see.
Maybe it could happen. Yeah, and then guess over to Patriots Broncos Christmas night, Christmas Eve, spectacular or whatever they call the holiday classic. It didn't disappoint. I mean, the Patriots certainly got ahead on some Broncos, special
I
teams errors,
I
and then
was quite
Broncos
I
tried
was
to come
quite
back.
shocked at how this game turned out. I
Yeah,
was quite
I thought it was
shocked.
gonna be a snooze fest, and then in the second half, like it just got crazy. Like back to back touchdowns by Patriots within 8 seconds
No,
or
I
whatever it
I
was.
gotta give a special shout out to my defensive tackle right here, Christian Barmore, number 90. Man, you balled out. You showed up. You made Russell Wilson's day a living hell, and essentially the Broncos' day a living hell. Absolute animal. He wrecked that offensive line, generated pressures, forced bad timings. Christian Barmore, MVP of the game. Bailey Zappi, also really good. Devontae
Zappy looked
Parker,
good.
yeah, Devontae Parker, he showed up. He balled out when and had those great catches. Same with Pop Douglas, especially when Juju was hurt and couldn't play. I mean, listen, I don't care that we won this game and that we may have potentially played ourselves out of a top three pick. I
Mm,
really don't care. This game shows that even though we've had a pretty sucky season, that this team still cares. The players still care. And that's all I wanted. I wanted some heart. I wanted some fight. I wanted some strength. I wanted some courage. And I got that. Merry Christmas, Patriots fans.
yeah, no, that's nice. Yeah, certainly a great feel-good story. And then, yeah,
And
Christmas Day
and
slate definitely didn't disappoint in
and
terms of,
speaking of Merry Christmas, the Chiefs lost.
yeah,
Ah,
who would have thought?
and
Uh,
here's the strange thing. Aiden O'Connell did not complete a
right.
pass after the first half.
He
It
just
was
kept
like,
handing off the ball, and they still won thanks to Zamir White. I mean, the running game.
and Patrick Mahomes looked awful. The
He
Chiefs'
did.
offense looked awful.
They kept
It,
dropping everything. I was just like,
hey,
it
I'm not
was
complaining.
the line was bad. Mahomes, I mean, was tried his best, I guess, but
Listen,
the
at this point,
again another two
the Chiefs
touchdowns
defense,
back to back by the Raiders defense. That was all the
yeah,
difference.
I mean,
So
yeah, I'm back to back touchdowns within about 7 seconds by the
yeah,
Raiders defense. But, l- like this game should remind you, the Chiefs defense played really damn well.
they did.
The Chiefs offense played really damn badly.
hmm
But I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I
Merry
mean,
Christmas, Chiefs
I
fans.
feel you. Guess as an honorary Chiefs fan, I was a little disappointed, but that has more, I guess, less to do with the Chiefs and more to do with the Eagles. But speaking of the Eagles and Giants, that was certainly turned into an interesting game. I mean, it was You know, it was supposed to be a Eagles blowout, and then the Eagles gifted the Giants 14 points because of kickoff return, a pick six. The Giants, benched DeVito. They put Tyrod Taylor into the game, and suddenly they looked pretty good. I mean, they looked. I mean, they still Taylor made mistakes, but I mean, they had life. I mean, they did what you'd want them to do. They put up a good fight, and that's honestly all I could really expect as a Giants fan. I mean, the Eagles eventually did get it together. They were able to win the game, but I mean, they're gonna have some serious problems if they continue to play like this. I mean, they did snap the 3-game losing skin, and they have a chance to win out. But I mean, it's not it's not looking too great. I mean, that's kind of all I have to say. I mean,
Now, like, even though the Eagles had a fairly solid performance, something just looked off with them. I don't know how to explain it.
yeah, it's just those two the pick six. I mean the issues they're having. The I don't know, they kind of let the Giants back into the game, but the Giants also did play well. They didn't just kind of stop there. They did show up on offense. It would have been nice if they were able to win. And there was some stuff with the refs, but at the end of the day, they made it competitive when no one thought they would, and they keep a high draft pick. I mean, honestly, I was pretty happy to see that. And they see them again
In
in two
all
weeks
honesty, it's a win
in
for
New
you.
York.
All right,
Yeah, it's a win
let's
for me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Ravens 49ers real quick.
That was what everyone was looking forward to is the game of the week, the two
Listen,
best teams in the league,
for the
and
first
you
half,
know,
San Francisco showed up. Like their defense was there. But
yeah,
of course, if anything, this game solidified Christian McCaffrey's MVP status, or even Lamar Jackson, because
it's one. It's got
Brock
to be
Pur
like one of the two.
yeah, because
Probably
Brock
give it to the
Purdy,
quarterback,
he
but
was
yeah,
god awful.
four picks. My
Four
goodness.
interceptions. I mean, that
Right.
can't
Yeah.
expect that out of an MVP candidate. I mean,
Yeah.
I
I agree.
mean, but Lamar showed up. Like he played exceptionally well, and apparently it looks like no one is able to stop the Ravens offense. And even though the Ravens are completely ravaged with injuries, they are still balling. They are still showing they are as dangerous as ever. And you know, as for San Francisco, I mean, of course, like this is your first bad loss in a while, but this is still like, this is still bad because you didn't really put on that much of a competitive show after the first half ended.
Mhm.
So we'll see where things
Yeah.
go from here. But that was a great week of football.
Yeah, that's gonna wrap this part up, and we'll come back with some more